It's already recording. Okay, you press it. Hare Krishna. Okay, so we're going to begin as ever. We're going to chant Jai Radha Madhava. If you don't know the lyrics, they're up on the screen here, and then we'll move on to Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Friday Night Gita ki jai, Bhagavad Gita as it is ki, Uttari Gauravanande. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So, thank you everyone for coming. It's good to see you all. Good to see some familiar faces who haven't been for a while. Wayne and Cliff. And good to see you both again. And you brought your friend. What's your name?
Nathan.
Nathan. Nice to meet you, Nathan. You've been here before, have you not?
No.
That's your first time. Great. Well, thanks very much for coming. So, is anyone else who's been coming here for the first time? Okay, great. So we're gonna get. Oh, it's already up here. No, we're on chapter 5, text 18 of the Bhagavad Gita. We're going to get it up on the screen here. But otherwise, we recite a little mantra just before we read from the Bhagavad Gita. By the way, my name is Caitanya. I have a really bad habit of asking people their name and never introducing myself. I'm Caitanya. Nice to meet you. So, if everyone can repeat after me. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We'll try it all together. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Okay, so now we have it up on the board, or you may have a book in front of you. If you do have the book, it's page 293. Chapter 5, text 18. Okay, so we'll go through the Sanskrit together. Vidya, Vinaya, Sampane, Vidya, Vinaya, Sampane, Brahmane, Yavi, Hastini, Brahmane Gavihastini,
Brahmane Gavihastini,
Shuni,
Shuni,
Chaiva,
Chaiva,
Svapake,
Svapake,
Cha,
Cha,
Shuni Chaiva, Svapake Cha,
Shuni, Chaiva, Svapake, Cha,
Pandita,
Pandita,
Sama,
Sama,
Dashina,
Dashina,
Pandita Sama Dashina,
Pandita, Samadashina,
Vidyavinaya Sampane,
Vidyavinaya Sampane,
Brahmane Gavihastini,
Brahmane Gavihastini,
Shuni Chaiva Svapake Cha,
Shuni, Chaiva, Svapake, Cha,
Pandita Sama Dashina,
Pandita, Samadashina,
Vidyavinaya Sampane,
Vidyavinaya Sampane,
Brahmane Gavihastini,
Brahmane Gavihastini,
Shuni Chaiva Svapake Cha,
Shuni, Chaiva, Svapake, Cha,
Pandita Samidashina,
Pandita, Samadashina,
Vidyavinaya Sampane,
Vidyavinaya Sampane,
Brahmane Gavihastini,
Brahmane Gavihastini,
Shuni Chaiva Svapake Cha,
Shuni, Chaiva, Svapake, Cha,
Pandita Samadarshina,
Pandita, Samadashina,
Vidyavinaya Sampanne,
Vidyavinaya Sampane,
Brahmane Gavihastini,
Brahmane Gavihastini,
Shuni Chaiva Svapake Cha,
Shuni, Chaiva, Svapake, Cha,
Pandita Samadashina,
Pandita, Samadashina, Vidyavinaya Sampane,
Vidyavinaya Sampane,
Brahmane Gavihastini,
Brahmane Gavihastini,
Shuni, Chaiva, Svapake, Cha,
Shuni Chaiva Svapake Cha,
Pandita, Samadashina,
Pandita Samadashina. Would any of the ladies like to have a go? India? Vidyavinaya Sampane, Brahmane Gavihastini, Shuni Chaiva Svapake Cha, Pandita Samadashina. Okay, we'll go through the word for word. Vidya,
Vidya,
with education.
with education,
Vinaya,
Vinaya,
and gentleness.
and gentleness,
Sampane,
Sampane,
fully equipped.
fully equipped,
Brahmane,
Brahmane,
in the Brahman.
in the Brahman,
Gavi,
Gavi,
in the cow.
in the cow,
Hastini,
Hastini,
in the elephant.
the elephant,
Shuni,
Shuni,
in the dog.
in the dog,
Cha,
Cha,
and
and
Eva,
Eva,
certainly.
certainly,
Supake,
Svapake,
in the dog eater.
in the dog,
The outcast.
the outcast,
Cha,
Cha,
respectively.
respectively,
Pandita,
Pandita,
those who are wise.
those who are wise,
Samadashina, who
Samadashina,
see with equal vision.
who see with equal vision.
Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivinoda Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. The humble sages, by virtue of true knowledge, see with equal vision a learned and gentle Brahmin, a cow, an elephant, a dog, and a dog-eater outcast. Everyone can repeat after me. The humble sages, by virtue of true knowledge,
By virtue of true knowledge,
see with equal vision
see with equal vision,
a learned and gentle Brahmin,
learned and gentle Brahman,
a cow,
a cow,
an elephant,
an elephant,
a dog,
a dog,
and a dog-eater outcast.
and a dog eating outcast.
Purports. A Krishna-conscious person does not make any distinction between species or castes. The Brahmin and the outcast may be different from the social point of view, or a dog, a cow, and an elephant may be different from the point of view of species. But these differences of body are meaningless from the viewpoint of a learned transcendentalist. This is due to their relationship to the Supreme. For the Supreme Lord, by his plenary portion as Paramatma, is present in everyone's heart. Such an understanding of the Supreme is real knowledge. As far as the bodies are concerned, in different castes or different species of life, the Lord is equally kind to everyone, because he treats every living being as a friend, yet maintains himself as Paramatma, regardless of the circumstances of the living entities. The Lord as Paramatma is present both in the outcast and in the Brahman, although the body of a Brahman and that of an outcast are not the same. The bodies are material productions of different modes of material nature, but the soul and the supersoul within the body are of the same spiritual quality. The similarity in the quality of the soul and the supersoul, however, does not make them equal in quantity. For the individual soul is present only in that particular body, whereas the Paramatma is present in each and every body. A Krishna conscious person has full knowledge of this, and therefore he is truly learned and has equal vision. The similar characteristics of the soul and the supersoul are that they are both conscious, eternal, and blissful. Excuse me. But the difference is that the individual soul is conscious within the limited jurisdiction of the body, whereas the supersoul is conscious of all bodies. The supersoul is present in all bodies without distinction. We're just going to go through these Mangalacharan mantras or prayers. If you know them, you can join in. If you don't, you can just listen. They're purifying, even just to listen to them. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurum Vidatam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Caitanya Vallabha Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamaya Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavanscha Shri Rupam Sagrajata Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadhuitam Savajutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitanscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Panchakalpa Turubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Patitanam Pavanibhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So, the humble sages, by virtue of true knowledge, see with equal vision a learned and gentle Brahmin, a cow, an elephant, a dog, and a dog-eater outcast. So this is a very famous and a very important verse in the Bhagavad Gita. And Indira, she said this is her favourite verse. And it's an important verse because right now, the series of verses that we're studying the symptoms of a self-realised person, or the symptoms of a Krishna conscious or an enlightened person. So one of the main symptoms of someone who's actually spiritually enlightened or spiritually advanced is that they offer respect to every living being. You know, like nowadays, not just nowadays, I think since time immemorial, people, you know, especially nowadays, though, complain that people don't have enough respect for one another anymore. You know, like sometimes the elderly, they complain. The young ones, these youngins, they just don't respect their elders. Who's ever heard that before? And when you start thinking like that, it means you're getting old now as well. Actually, it's funny, you realise you're getting old. One of the symptoms of you getting old is that you start to realise, actually, I'm older than the policeman now. You see the policemen on the street and they look young. But sometimes like this, they say, you know, the elderly will say, oh, you know, the young'uns today, they just don't respect their elders or teachers. They'll say the kids, they just don't respect their teachers or the parents. They're saying the kids don't respect their parents. And like this, there isn't always so much respect. So what to speak of just having respect for the elderly, then it's said that a Krishna conscious person, a humble sage, actually has respect for every single living being, which is quite amazing. So tonight we're going to be exploring why do they have respect for every living being, and how do they develop this consciousness where they can offer respect for every living being, and especially, most importantly for us, how can we develop this consciousness? Don't you think it would be nice to be able to live in a society where everyone is respectful to one another? Wouldn't that be nice? Actually, one devotee was saying that when he learned to drive, his driving instructor showed him a video. And on this video, what happened was there was a man who pulled out to a junction, and then there was another car that was coming past. So sometimes when you're driving, right, you want to be ahead of someone else, so you don't give way to someone. You pull out. Maybe you're in a rush for work or something like that. You know, it's the height of the rush hour. Everyone's really passionate. But this man, he gave way to this other person. So this person, when he was driving along, he thought, oh, that was nice that this person gave way to me. So then when he got to the junction, because he'd had a good deed done to him, he gave way to the next driver. And then that driver thought, well, that was nice. So then when he got to the junction, he gave way to the next driver. And then very soon, like that, then the whole town was, you know, giving way to each other and respecting one another like this. So it tends to, you know, how do you say, be contagious in a good way if we offer respect to one another. So firstly, I wanted to ask you all a question, and I'm going to ask for some suggestions. You can put your hand up. Firstly, what does it mean to respect? Let's just think about someone, rather than talking about respecting all living beings. What does it mean to respect someone? Can we have some suggestions? Rajendra.
So it would mean we don't really need to know that person to treat him the way a person should be treated.
Very nice. So he said, it doesn't even matter if we know the person, but we should treat others the way we want to be treated ourselves. I think it says something like that in the Bible, right? Treat others as you want to be treated yourself. Good. So respect. What else does it mean to be respectful or to respect someone?
Not to exploit them.
Not to exploit them. Yeah. People get exploited in so many different ways, in so many different avenues. So not to exploit someone. Yeah. What else does it mean to respect someone? Come on, don't be shy. Throw out some answers. Cliff.
We're not always right, or another person's not always right. It's not trying to impose our will on someone else. It's respecting their point of view.
Nice.
And not trying to control or say, well, that's not how it is, this is how it is. Because that's just our perception. So if we would like our perception respected, we should respect another person's
Nice.
perception.
Yeah, that's a nice point. You know, we're all individuals. We've all got different ways of doing things and different ways of looking at the world. So we shouldn't try and impose our viewpoint or our way of doing something on others. I find that one very hard myself. I really like to try and, you know, I have that type of false ego where I think I know best. You know, I always know best. So therefore I'm always saying, no, it should be done like this. But when we do that, we stifle people. And, you know, we may not have the best way of doing it. And we may not, you know, it's nice also to learn from others, different ways of looking at things. So that's a nice one. We shouldn't try and impose our viewpoint on others. Yeah, respect them. Yeah, any others?
Attentiveness, like a person attentive enough. Why I would say automatically kind of.
That's a nice way. Yeah, like for instance, you're talking to me now. So tell me that answer again. Give me your answer again.
Attentiveness.
Sorry, what did you say? What did you say? Anyway, you get the idea. Yeah, so like being attentive. So if you're speaking to someone, give them your full attention. It's very hard in this day and age, isn't it? Because there's so many distractions all the time. And quite often they say in the art of conversation, and I find myself doing this all the time, when someone's saying something, as they're saying what they're saying, you're maybe not really listening to what they're saying, but you're thinking about the next thing that you're going to say, and you want to get your point. And sometimes two people are having a conversation, and the two conversations are nothing to do with one another. Someone will say, well, I've cooked this for dinner tonight. The other person was saying yes, because, there wasn't any petrol in the car. And then the other will be saying, yeah, I've made peas and carrots and this. And the other one's saying, I broke down. And, they're having two completely different conversations because they're not actually listening or being attentive to what the other person's saying. So if you have respect for someone, you'll give them your attention. That's a nice one. Thank you. Any more? One more, perhaps? Different way of respecting, or what does it mean to respect?
Showing empathy and compassion towards situations that they might be in at any time.
Oh, that's a nice way.
If somebody if you're going down the street and you mention somebody pulls out of a junction, maybe they've got something going on, maybe they're stressed, but you kind of touched on that a little bit, you know the lines where I'm going with it.
That's nice. So to put yourself in someone else's shoes, to have empathy, right?
Yeah.
Like sometimes, like you say, someone may cut you up like that while you're driving or something, but we don't know that they've had a really bad day. Perhaps their wife's about to give birth in the hospital, they're in a real rush to get there. And sometimes we judge people without actually knowing what their situation is or having some respect. Okay, you're going through this right now, and it would be wrong of me to judge you in that situation. That's nice. Yeah. I mean, it has many different connotations. I just picked a couple from the dictionary here. So this is one: a feeling of deep appreciation for someone or something elicited by their abilities, their qualities, or their achievements. So I'll say that again. A feeling of deep appreciation for someone or something which is elicited by their abilities, their qualities, or their achievements. And then this is another one: to have due regard for the feelings, wishes, and the rights of others. So these are just two. So now what we want to look at, why does a humble sage, or why does a spiritually advanced person have respect for every living entity? Well, the actual verse says, the humble sages, by virtue of true knowledge, they see with equal vision. By virtue of true knowledge. So there's many different types of knowledge. There's so many different things you can study nowadays. I just met someone today in Newcastle studying real estate. The first person I've ever met studying real estate, and he said it was, property development and also like architecture. Okay, let's have some other. Who's putting your hand up if you're studying here at the moment? Anyone studying? Dhananjaya, what are you studying?
I'm studying the Krishna book.
Studying the Krishna. Very nice. But for this example, not such a good one. No, very good. You're studying the Krishna book. What are you studying? Okay, well that's not going to work. That's not going to work for my example. Different types of knowledge. Cliff, what are you studying?
I've just finished doing my Masters in Criminology.
Ah, you just finished your Masters in Criminology. Yeah. Nice. So that's working out why criminals commit crimes and kind of a lot of psychology involved, right? What's going on in their mind, is their programming, conditioning, those type of things?
The sociology of crime, right? It comes
Yeah.
from sociology, that's what it was originally.
Yeah.
Social construct of crime, not so much psychological. There's obviously psychological.
Nice, so criminology. What else? Ramara, you had your hand up there. What are you studying at the moment?
Lightroom.
Lightroom. Is that something to do with photography?
That's right.
He's a very keen photographer. Yeah, there's so many different things we can study. Recently I've been doing a bit of study about how to be successful on YouTube. Because not that I want to become a YouTuber or whatever, but we've just started our, I'm pointing to the camera because this is on live Facebook now, but in a few days it will go onto YouTube. So we're uploading all our things onto YouTube nowadays because a lot of time people's first contact with Krishna consciousness nowadays is online through Facebook, through YouTube. So therefore it's good to have an online presence so we can share this with as many people as possible. So I've been studying how to be successful on YouTube. You know, there's certain techniques, certain things you've got to do, and by no means are we doing them all yet, but you know, slowly, step by step, we'll try and improve. I know, there's so many different things, but Prabhupada says true knowledge means to understand the difference between spirit and matter and the controller of both. I'll say that again. True knowledge is to understand the difference between spirit and matter and the controller of both. So in other words, one who's actually advanced in spiritual life, they see the distinction between the body and the self. You know, we've done these classes many times before, but there's a difference between the body and there's a difference between the soul.
So matter and body is the same thing?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, matter just means material. You know, the material energy. So the body is made of material energy. It's made of 8 elements: earth, water, fire, air, and ether, and then mind, intelligence, and ego. But beyond that, there's the driver of the body. You know, there's we've given the example before, but just like you have a car, then you have the driver. So who's the driver? That's the soul. So the difference between matter and spirit, and then the controller of both. So the controller of both is Krishna, or the super soul. So therefore it's described that these humble sages, they see every living entity equally. They have what's called sama darshana, which means equal vision. What does sama sound like? Same. Yeah, that's where it comes from actually. The English word same comes from this Sanskrit word sama. So darshana means vision. So sama darshana literally means to see everything the same. And Srila Prabhupada says in the purport that they make no distinction between caste or species. Let me find the sentence. Well, it's the very first sentence. A Krishna-conscious person does not make any distinction between species or castes. And the example is given of a Brahmin, a learned and gentle Brahmin, or a priest, a cow, an elephant, a dog, and a dog-eater. In some places in the world, they eat dogs. In some places in the Far East, Orient, like that. We don't eat. We'd be horrified about eating dogs here. You know, could you imagine that? In this country, but then if you go to some other countries, they're amazed to see how well we treat our dogs. Because if you go to some countries, the dogs are just running around stray on the streets. And you know, we have like dog hotels and things. You can take your dog to a hotel, get it pampered for the day. We treat them sometimes better than human beings. So they make no distinction between a Brahmin, a cow, an elephant, a dog, and a dog-eater. In other words, they see them equally. So what does that mean, that they see them equally? Actually, it means that they offer respects to every living entity. They treat them equally. In other words, there's no inequality. There's no inequality. Like in the world we live in, there's many different types of inequalities. Can anyone give me some examples? Inequalities that are going on in society.
Racist, country.
Racism. Yeah, that's an inequality. What else? Sexism. Yes, I thought you might say that one. I know you're a firm, how should we say, advocate for, for the women. A firm advocate for women's live. Yes. So racism, sexism. What other type of inequalities are there?
Snobbery?
Snobbery, yeah, like social or maybe economic inequalities. Sometimes, just because someone's been to, Oxbridge, they've been to Oxford or Cambridge, and they may not be any cleverer than someone who's been to Sunderland University, for instance. We're not saying there's anything wrong with Sunderland University. However, the point is there is some snobbery sometimes because they've been to Oxbridge, therefore they must be more capable or more clever or whatever. Maybe you've not been to any university. Maybe you've studied the University of Life, as they say. Yeah, so snobbery. Yeah, that's another good one. What are the type of inequalities we experience?
Ageism.
Ageism. Yes. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, and actually we were making that point at the beginning of the class. That, the young'uns, these young'uns, they just don't respect their elders. But that is a fact, actually. Our society pretty much puts up on a pedestal the youngest, the most beautiful, do you know what I mean? When you're young, 20, 25. In fact, when you reach 25, you're kind of pretty much past it, But we really worship, youth, and then the older people, they're just considered, throw them on the scrap heap. No offence, Dhananjaya. But actually, some cultures where they respect wisdom, they offer more respect to the elders because they've got the wisdom of life. They've already been there, done that, and bought the t-shirt. And sometimes when we're younger, we think we know it all. Sometimes your parents are telling you this and that, and you're just like, I know what I'm doing. I remember one point I used to argue a bit with my mum when I was younger, and at one point when I got older I said that actually I really appreciate everything you did for me when I was growing up, and I'm sorry I didn't appreciate you when I was younger, because we're a bit puffed up sometimes.
Sorry.
So because of these inequalities, there's many, in other words, we're seeing distinctions between people. I can't offer respect to you because you didn't go to Oxbridge. Or I can't offer respect to you because you're too old. I can't offer respect to you because you're a woman. I can't offer respect to you because you're a different race. So there's these different barriers. I've written down here, there's social barriers, there's cultural barriers, economic barriers, political barriers. I can't respect you because you're conservative and you're Labour. There's religious barriers. They're some of the biggest problems. The other day I watched a documentary on partition of India. Recently it was the 70th anniversary of the partition of India, and I watched a documentary which I recorded and then watched it, and the horrors, the atrocities. Some of you may know, in the audience, you may know people who were affected by there was about 17 million refugees. They created Pakistan and India, and then people who were Muslims but were living in India, they had to flee to Pakistan. And then the people in Pakistan who were Hindus, they had to flee. And many people were attacked and killed and murdered. Innocent people, great atrocities. So these were religious distinctions, religious barriers, even subcultural. Okay, who've put your hands up here if you're from Newcastle? No one's from Newcastle in this room. We do have some, they don't want to admit it. Okay, put your hand up if you're from Sunderland. Okay, who wants to come and take us on? Sunderland versus... So subcultural, even if you support the wrong football team, that can be a big barrier. I can't like you because you're a Mackem. We're the Toon Army, and you're, actually, Toon Army, they're doing better than Sunderland this season. They're up in the Premier League. But, the subcultural barriers, or even perhaps, you listen to the wrong type of music. When I was at school, I was a metaler. I used to have long hair, and I was into death and black and heavy metal. And then at school, we had our common room in the sixth form, and then there was a stereo there, communal stereo, and then you could put, so it was a bit of a fight at break time or lunchtime to see who could get something on the CD. So, like myself and a few of my other friends, there wasn't many of us who were into death and black metal. It's quite a niche kind of genre, But we wanted to subject our music on everyone else. So we would rush to get there and put one of our CDs in, and we'd put it on, like this, and we'd be really getting into it. Everyone's going, that's rubbish, and then they'd put some dance music on or some indie, like in the 60s or whatever, there was like the rods and the mockers, the mods and the rockers, so subcultural barriers even. And even if we love every single human being, maybe we have some distinctions, species. We love our fellow human, but we don't see anything wrong with hurting animals. For instance, eating them. Or, sometimes people abuse animals. Sometimes my wife shows me on Facebook there's some video that's been posted, someone's abusing a dog or something like this. So there's many different barriers, false barriers, or false designations, distinctions that we put on each other, and therefore we can't offer respects. So this knowledge, it breaks down all of these barriers, political, social, religious, economic, and it brings us to the common denominator. The common denominator is the characteristic which is shared by all members of a group of people. So what do we all have in common? Whether we're from Sunderland or Newcastle or Seaham or, Mauritius or India or Ireland. Sarah's artist not here tonight. Hungary. It doesn't matter where we are or what we're from. There's one common denominator, which is...
We're all children of Krishna.
We're all children of Krishna. We're all, as they say in Scotland, we're all Jock Thompson's bairns. Is that right, Wayne?
I've never heard that.
Some parts of Scotland say, we're all Jock Thompson's bairns. We're all children of God, yeah. We're all spiritual living entities. When you break it down through all these different distinctions, we're all the same. We're not the body, we're the soul. I may be from Sunderland or Newcastle in this lifetime, but in my next lifetime, if I take birth as a tree, which I may take birth as a worm and stool, who knows what's in store for us. So therefore, what does it mean to say I'm a Geordie or I'm a Mackham or whatever? No, I'm the soul. This is the common denominator. Because if you don't see the soul in all species of life, all you'll see is distinctions. All you'll see is the body. And then we'll see people in terms of friends and enemies. You're my friend because you're into the same things I'm into, or you're from the same country that I'm into. But you're my enemy because you've got a different opinion, or a different viewpoint, or a different way of life, or you were born in a different place. But actually it's described that the truly advanced spiritual persons, they make no distinction, they have no friends and they have no enemies. It was described that the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan, who you see here on the bottom of the altar, on the far right, they were great sages who lived 500 years ago, and it's described in one prayer that they were dear both to the gentle and to the ruffians. It's not a word we use much nowadays, it's a very old-fashioned word, ruffians, but in the translation. In other words, the rough people, they liked him, and the gentle people, they liked him as well. Why? Because they didn't see them, they didn't make any distinction, they offered respect to them, they didn't see the externals, they saw the soul. And quite often you find that people are like mirrors. And I'll explain what I mean by that. What it means is that people reflect whatever you project onto them. And yet I notice this sometimes on book distribution. Sometimes you'll see someone, a ruffian perhaps, they'll look really rough. And then you think, well, I'm not going to approach this person to give them a book, or, but then you approach them and you just put aside your misconceptions, and actually they're a really nice guy. You offer respect to them, you treat them, with no prejudice, and then they're really nice. So if you treat people with respect, you'll often find that people will respect you back. Remember that. People are like mirrors. They reflect whatever you project onto them. So there's no such thing as an enemy. In fact, Prahlad Maharaj, one boy, saint, he said that there are no enemies. The only enemy is the uncontrolled mind. When our mind is out of control, it gets us to do all kinds of things that we don't want to do, or that we later on regret. We were talking about this a few weeks ago. If we have an uncontrolled mind, in other words, we know that something's right, but our mind says, don't do it, do the wrong thing, or whatever it is. It can be something small. We were talking about, like myself. I just can't, if I get some sweets or something or some chocolate, I just can't eat one. I have to eat the whole packet. You know, I'm just like one extreme to the other. And then, you know, because I can't control my mind, therefore, you know, then I start to put on some weight. Anyway, you get the idea. So the only enemy, Prahlad Maharaj said, is the uncontrolled mind. So therefore, the spiritualists, they don't make any distinction. Now, does that mean, if we don't make any distinction between species, does that mean we should go to the zoo and jump into the tiger pit and embrace the tiger? Oh, my dear tiger, Tony the tiger. Let me give you an embrace because, you know, you're also a soul, I'm a soul, we're like brothers. No. You know, there are also some videos you see like that sometimes, people who jumped into the lion's den or things like that, and or even sometimes, you know, chimpanzees and things that have been brought up like in a domesticated way, when they get older, they become vicious because they're animals, you know. There's one chimpanzee who ripped someone's face off. Some woman in South Africa, I think. Anyway, so no, it doesn't mean that we don't make any distinction. We do, but in other words, we try and treat them as the soul, or at least we understand they're not that body. They may have a tiger's body temporarily, but actually beneath that they're the soul. And we treat them as the soul. One time, Srila Prabhupada, who brought this knowledge of Bhagavad Gita, as it is to the Western world, one time he was in his room with one of his students, Malati, and she said, Srila Prabhupada, she said, there's a slug here on this wall. Now let me ask you, what do you do if you see a slug? Like sometimes, I'm not sure if you ever noticed, sometimes we get a slug in our sink downstairs. Every now and again, slugs, you know, they just seem to come up through or a spider. What do you do if you see a spider? Put your hands up if you're scared of spiders. So, I used to be really scared of them. But anyway, wasps, they're the thing I hate, wasps. Oh, I freak out. But anyway, so Srila Prabhupada said, Srila Prabhupada, there's a slug here on this wall. And Prabhupada said, well, don't just stand there, chant to it. Chant Hare Krishna to it. So she chanted, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Because Srila Prabhupada was thinking, how can I best serve this slug? Okay, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on which way you look at it, he's got a slug's body. But he's not that slug. He's the soul. In his last lifetime, perhaps he was, a person who just kept killing too many slugs. Perhaps he was a gardener and he was really disturbed that the slugs kept eating all his cabbages. So he made it his life's mission to just kill all these slugs. But then in his next lifetime, he took birth as a slug. So the best way we can help someone, Hare Krishna, thanks for coming. Please take a seat. So Srila Prabhupada said, chant to this slug, because by chanting to the slug, it revives the dormant Krishna consciousness within the slug. And his next lifetime, he won't take birth as a slug. And in the same way, Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu, when he was walking through the Jarikanda forest and he was chanting, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Bol. One more time. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. So when Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu, wherever he was going, he was chanting this Hare Krishna mantra constantly. But when he was walking through the Jarikanda forest in India, all the other living entities, they also started to chant and dance. The tigers, they started to chant and dance. The deer, they started to chant and dance. And in fact, it's described that the deer and the tiger, they would embrace each other, even though they were natural, the tiger's the natural predator of the deer. but they were embracing because they were put on a spiritual platform by the potency of Caitanya Mahaprabhu was chanting. He wasn't seeing them as their body, he was seeing them as the soul. And it's described that the Panchatattva, they broke open the storehouse of love of God and they freely distributed it without considering who was fit and who was unfit. They made no distinction. So this is how we offer respect to every living entity, is that we treat them as not the body, but as the soul. But we do it sensibly, like we said, we don't go and embrace the tiger. In other words, we see everyone as our friend. And it's described that in the purport that the Paramatma, or the super soul, Krishna, who's within everyone's heart, he also doesn't make distinction. He sees everyone as his friend also. And he never lets us down. He never abandons us. Sometimes we may have some friends, but then they let us down. Or they abandon us. We may have been through that experience. But Krishna, he never does that. And the way he shows that he doesn't do that is that Krishna, or the super soul, the Paramatma, he accompanies each living entity in every single species of life. So right now we have a human body, and Krishna is situated within our heart as the Paramatma, as the super soul. But when we had an animal body, when we had the body of a donkey, then Krishna was there within the body of the donkey. You know, or a fly that, you know, flies around stool. So there's some pretty gross animals out there. So, you know, or there's a worm in stool. But Krishna, he's also within the heart of the worm, living in stool. Like sometimes they have that expression, what's a nice guy like you doing in a place like this? You know? You don't expect to see a nice guy in a horrible place. But Krishna, he doesn't make any distinction. He accompanies, how do you say that word? Accompanies us. He accompanies us life after life after life after life after life. He never abandons us. And he's just waiting for us to turn to him and acknowledge him. You see? So there, Krishna is the best friend of every living entity. And it's an important point that's mentioned in the purport that there's also a difference between the soul and the super soul. So we said that true knowledge is to understand the difference between matter and spirit and the controller of both. In other words, there's the body, there's the soul, and there's the super soul. But there is a distinction, there is a difference between the super soul, the Paramatma, and the Atma, the soul. We're equal in quality to Krishna in that we're Satchidananda, we're eternal, full of knowledge and full of bliss, just like Krishna. So we're equal in quality, just like you can take one drop of the ocean and it has the same properties as the whole ocean. But it's not equal in quantity to the whole ocean. So in the same way, we're equal in quality but not quantity. So we are just present, situated within the heart of our own body. But Krishna, he is situated within the heart of every single living entity, within every atom, actually. So there is a distinction. So now how do we get this knowledge, this true knowledge? So in the previous 2 verses before, Krishna says in chapter 5, text 16, he says, Jnanena tu tadajnanam yesham nashitam atmana tesham adityayaj jnanam vajjnanam prakashayati tatparam. When, however, one is enlightened with the knowledge by which nescience is destroyed, then his knowledge reveals everything as the sun lights up everything in the daytime. And then in the purport, Prabhupada says, now where is it? Now I can't find it, but there's a part in the purport where Prabhupada says that by surrender. Let me just check if I've got the right verse. Okay, here we go. So it's 5 lines down. Perfect knowledge is achieved when one surrenders unto Krishna. So by surrendering unto Krishna, one gets 2 things, jnana and vairagya. Jnana and vairagya, knowledge and detachment. When one engages in devotional service to Krishna, when one chants the Hare Krishna mantra regularly, then one gets these two things, jnana, vairagya, knowledge and detachment. And if one continues to serve Krishna, then one gets this perfect knowledge by which they can see the soul within every species of life, and they can offer respects to every living entity. So the last point we want to make is that this culture of Krishna consciousness, it is a culture of respect. You know, generally in materialistic society, it's all about me first. I want to get, I want to be number one, like they say, dog-eat-dog world. So whatever I can do to get to the top, even if I have to step on other people, that's what I'll do. That's what materialistic society is about. But Vedic culture, or Krishna consciousness, is about you first. It's about serving every living entity, because we see them as part and parcel of Krishna. When we say Namo Namaha, it means literally offer my respects to you, but it means not me, but you. Like this. So it's a culture of respect. And how is the best way we can offer respects to every living entity? What is the best way? The best way we can offer respects to every living entity is to share this knowledge. To share this knowledge by which people can become free from suffering. Like we said, we're putting all our classes and our talks and our kirtans, we're putting them all online now. Why? So we can share it with as many people. Like in this room there's about 25 or 30 people. But, there's other people watching online. And in this way we can share it. So we want to share this knowledge with others. We help to wake people up, to remind them, you're not the body, you're the soul. You have an eternal relationship with Krishna. And when you engage in that eternal relationship with Krishna, this will bring you the greatest satisfaction. And the best way to share this knowledge with others is by sharing the chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Just like Srila Prabhupada said, chant to that slug. Don't just stand there, chant to it. So the next time you're cleaning your bath and there's a big spider comes up out of the plug hole, you may take it out gently and throw it outside, but before you do, chant to it. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. When you're walking through the forest or when you're walking down the road, chant to all these blades of grass, to all these flowers, to all these trees, to all these insects. Share the holy name of Krishna with every single living entity. Offer respects to them all. And for one who does this, Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 18:69, Nachātasman manusheshu kaschin me priyakritama pavita nachame tasmad anya priyataro bhuvi. He says, there is no servant in this world more dear to me, nor will there ever be one more dear. Srila Prabhupada ki, Bhagavad Gita as it is ki. So we're just going to ask now, are there any reflections, anything you've heard during the discussion tonight, which is stuck in your mind that you can remember? So when you leave here and someone says, what was that guy talking about tonight? You can say, he was talking about this.
Dancing with tigers.
Dancing with tigers. Yeah, so you're going to try that next time you go to the zoo? Yeah. Chant Hare Krishna to them. Yeah. Actually, we went on a little tour of the north of Scotland a few years ago. We were putting festivals on, and every morning I was going for a japa walk. I was chanting Hare Krishna on my beads, and I was walking through countryside, and I was consciously chanting loudly, thinking I'm trying to share this chanting with all these living entities. And I came to a field full of cows, about 50 cows, and there was one cow at the fence, and I was chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna. And then slowly but surely, all these cows, they started coming over, and then there was about 50 cows all watching while I was chanting to them. I've not chanted for tigers, but same principle applies. So thank you for sharing that reflection. Sharing the chanting with every living entity. Jagannath Ishri.
The biggest act of kindness is sharing. Again, referring back to the point that you've just made, sharing the knowledge and sharing the knowledge.
Yeah, they say sharing is caring, or caring is sharing. Nice, yeah. This is the greatest act of kindness we can do. You know, like, we like to share things with our friends, but this is the greatest thing you can share, to remind people of who they really are and how they can be truly satisfied. Thank you. Rajendra?
Yeah, just like seeing everything with equal vision, the conception of the soul is actually the solution to all the world problems, because it eliminates all these barriers like country, race, prejudice, country, like, you know, this is my country, this is the borderline, this is the barrier, you know, you're not allowed to come here, we fight each other, like America is fighting North Korea, Iran is building nuclear weapons, all of that. But if they see everybody with equal vision, then they will have love and compassion, and it's just like, that's one thing I'm going to take away with me.
Thank you. It's a fact. Actually, all problems in the world stem from this lack of knowledge, of seeing everyone with equal vision. Because all the wars that are being fought, any type, is based on this distinction. Political barriers, social, economic, religious, cultural, subcultural. We're making distinctions. But if we can see them as the soul, and that we're all brothers and sisters, and therefore, you know, the common denominator is putting Krishna in the center, then it brings together, it creates harmony. The example is given, if you drop if you drop a stone into a pond, if you drop the stone in the middle, then all the circles, the concentric circles, they go out in harmony. So if you drop stones in different places in the pond, then you get many different concentric circles which then clash with each other. So when we put Krishna in the center, we drop one stone, we put Krishna in the center, and everyone puts Krishna in the center, then all these circles, they go out in harmony. So when we put Krishna in the center, there is complete harmony and peace amongst all living entities. So thank you for sharing that. Any other reflections, Dan and Joe?
Just taking from the purport how Srila Prabhupada emphasises perceiving the super soul also in the heart. I don't know whether you were talking about that when I was out in the room, sorry, I was on the phone call. But then you will definitely have more respect for each living entity. Otherwise, if you just see everyone equal, then you might think, well, I can actually disrespect people equally as well.
Yes.
I mean, so when you see the super soul in the heart, or an understanding that Krishna is present there, then I think automatically you will have more respect.
Yeah. That's a nice point. There's one verse in the Bhagavad Gita where Krishna says, one who sees the super soul equally present in all living entities, or sees the super soul everywhere, does not degrade himself by the mind. So that's a fact. When we see that Krishna is in the hearts of every living entities, and therefore we should offer respect to them, then again it brings this platform of peace and harmony. Thanks, Dan and Joe. Any other reflections? Okay, so we're going to stop there. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Shri Shri Panchatattva ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Damodar ki Jai. Nitai Gaura Premanande. You can stop. So what